Hi, my name is Zach Fisher, and today I will be talking about the vCenter server appliance, and this is to help you study for your VCP. So I'm very quickly going to the 301, 401 type of level, maybe 201, 301. And so just without further ado, I'm going to start out by talking about the architecture, which is pretty important here. You need to know that there's the platform services controller, the vCenter server, and your ESXi appliance. And there's two options. You can either have the platform services controller embedded in your vCenter server, which is what most people would do if they are planning on a new deployment, or you can have your platform services controller external to your vCenter server, which is pretty common for people who are migrating from older versions of vCenter or vSphere. And so with your vCenter server, you have to think about a few things. Just like any storage, any backup, any environment in enterprise IT, it needs to be highly available. So vCenter, if it's down, you won't be able to do things like have active HA, active failover, failback, fault tolerance, all of the really cool features that are some of the reasons why vSphere is so popular within the enterprise IT. So no bueno if vCenter server goes down. So obviously there's going to be a lot of questions on the vSphere exam or the DCV exam around making sure your vCenter server is HA and some of the specifics around that. Secondly, there's going to be questions on the DCV around whether your vCenter server is how to back it up and how to troubleshoot it, and all of these types of things are going to be in the DCV, and you're going to need to know some annoyingly specific details around the vCenter server and how to make sure it's highly available, it's backed up, and all of those types of things. Now, in a real world situation, if your vCenter server went down, that is not good. However, your ESXi servers will continue to run, and they will continue to work. So if the boss is gone, they're going to continue to work. However, if he's gone long enough and one of them needs help, needs to be failed over, those types of things, you're out of luck. So that is why there's an HA scenario within vCenter server. Now, this is kind of what it looks like when there's an external platform services controller. The platform services controllers, there's two of them, one for each vCenter server, and they communicate with each other, or they communicate with the vCenter server. There's two vCenter servers because it's highly available. Everything in a highly available system, there's two of. There's an active and a passive. So if the active ever goes down, then the passive will immediately come back up. There's also a vCenter server that's a witness. This is very important. The witness basically just looks and makes sure that the vCenter servers are not running at the same time. So it ensures what's called quorum between the vCenter servers. Very important. So there's three vCenter servers. They're all communicating through this HA network. All the vCenter servers are communicating through the HA network. Extremely important. There's going to be questions around how is the witness communicating with the vCenter server? How are the vCenter servers communicating with each other? They are communicating with each other through the HA network, all three of them. However, the platform services controllers, they have to use an external, if you have an external platform services controller, not embedded in vCenter server, then they have to use an external network. And that needs a external load balancer. Now, of course, the VCP or the DCV being as annoying as it is, will have questions around, it might have questions around like what type of load balancers there are supported. And there's 3 different types of load balancers supported. And the way I like to think about things is I like to use analogies to the physical world, like stupid little things to help me remember for the test. So the 3 different load balancers that are supported are NetScale, F5 Big IP, and NSX. Now, if you think about that, I like to think about it like, okay, so there's a large net, a scaled net with 5 freaking big, so that's 5 F5, 5 freaking big non-scalar X-rays. I don't know. Do whatever works for you, but I envision a large net with 5 freaking big non-scalar X-rays. So that helps me remember those are the 3 different external load balancers that are supported within the platform services controllers in an HA situation. I think I just helped you through maybe 3 DCV questions. And now I'm going to continue on to your vCenter server. How are you going to size? This is important for the DCV. How are we going to size the vCenter server? Well, I like to think about things in mathematical formulas. So if you have a tiny environment, and I think that all that you really need to know is the general terms, maybe less than 100 is tiny, 2,000 plus is huge, and then kind of divided in between there. But the important thing here is that you need to know that in a tiny environment, you need 2 CPUs and 10 gigs of memory. So 2 times 5 is 10. You see this pattern? So this number doubles, and this number goes down by 1. So 4 times 4 is 16. So 16 gigs of memory for CPU in the small system. 8 times 3, so you take that down by 1, double that, equals 24. So 8 CPU and 24 memory. So you just start with 2 and 5, 2 times 5, and then work your way down. And then keep doubling on this side, and then multiplying by 1 less over here. So now you go to 16 times 2 is 32, which is the large. Okay, so that's good. That gets you all the way to your large. Then there's an anomaly here. You know, you can't go up too much more than 8 in CPU. So you go from 16 to 24, and then you multiply that by 2 as well, and you get to 48 gigs of memory for the large. So this is how you size your vCenter server. So you need, for each of these sizes, large is 2,000, tiny is 100, and then you kind of go in between there, equally divided, small, medium, large. So in a small environment, you have 4 CPU and 16 gigs of memory. Okay, start with 2 and 10, work your way up. You should be good there. That is a good way to remember that, in my opinion. So now we're going to move our way down the whiteboard here into troubleshooting with the ESXi. You're just going to have to remember this one. So within the ESXi, there's a log that you need to look into if you're troubleshooting. It's called var/log/vpxa, xa.log. So I'm not exactly sure why they called it that, but you need to remember /var/log/vpxa, virtualization platform X appliance. I don't know. Now, another important thing, they're going to look for questions around the backup. To start your backup, you would have to assume that you're going to log into your vCenter server. You're going to log into your boss. You're going to say, all right, back up all this information. And then you're going to point it to whatever protocol you choose. There's several different protocols that are supported. I might go over that in a even more in-depth vCenter server video. But the important thing here is that you're going to back up using within the appliance management, and then you're going to point that to whatever backup you choose. And then if you want to restore, you'd have to assume that you're going to restore in the installer. So think about Windows. If you have a backup, you can restore that through the initial setup of your Windows 10 environment. Same thing with vCenter server. You're going to restore in the server appliance installer. Now, when you have PSE and vCenter, you first install Platform Services Controller, because it's kind of like the boss's boss, and then you install vCenter server, but sometimes there's issues. Remember, 444, 744, 744, 744, 744. So 444 is the name of the number of this very obnoxious attorney in Cincinnati, Ohio, which is where I'm from. And what I would recommend is think about this as that annoying attorney. Just make sure that port 744, 444, so 7444 is open. And you also always need to make sure your clocks are synchronized, or things are not going to work. So 7444 is like the SSO port, so you need to make sure that that is open. Now, we're almost down to the end here. This is extremely important. This is the last thing I'm going to go over today, because I've heard that there's a lot of questions on this, and it's an important thing to know regardless. When you're migrating your vCenter server, you need to make sure when you're migrating from a previous version, 5.5 or 6.0, and you've got your Windows vCenter server, if you have an embedded Platform Services Controller, it will just go to an embedded Platform Services Controller in 6.5. If you have just the server, it's going to go to the vCenter, the vCenter server with an external Platform Services Controller in 6.5. So 5.5 and 6.0, you need to make sure that if you have embedded, it goes to embedded. If it's just the server and you don't hear anything about the embedded or external, assume that there's an external, and you're going to go to 6.5 with an external. Now, if there's a Platform Services Controller or SSO on Windows, that is going to go to the Platform Services Controller on 6.5. Now, if you have, I'm going to show you the slideshow that I made for this. it's an eye chart, and I really hate showing eye charts, but it has the official documentation that you would look at from VMware on these things. So that's important to know. So maybe you can stop the video as I go through these slides and read through them or look them up, if that's what you so choose to do. So here we have the minimum requirements. This is what I was talking about before, where we've got so the last one is 2,000 hosts. So it's 2,000 physical hosts. The first one is 10 physical hosts. So tiny is 10 physicals, and extra large is 2,000. And you can see the pattern here. 2 times 5 is 10. 4 times 4 is 16. 8 times 3 is 24. 16 times 2 is 32. And then you've got your anomaly. 24 times 2 is 48. So this is about the vCenter server HA. So the important thing to look at here is that, you know, the HA is going to be done, there's an active node and there's a passive node. That's important to know. And when the failover occurs, the active becomes the passive, the passive becomes, or the passive becomes the active node. And then you have to understand that, like it shows here that you need to know that the HA network is used for replication and communication between the witness node. And then, as you would expect, the management is using a public IP address. So here we've got and you can see here, look, the HA network here, that's important to know. But you can see here that here's the platform services controllers, and that's where they use the load balancer to ensure that, you know, and then you can see that this management interface, as I told you before, it's using a public IP address. So these platform services controllers are not using the HA network, and they're using an external load balancer to communicate with the active vCenter server. And then you've got your net with 5 freaking big non-scalar X-rays. And those are the 3 supported types of load balancers. Now we've got backup, and backup is important here because backup, you know, everything needs to be backed up within an enterprise IT environment. Some of this shows the protocols, and I might go into this. I haven't seen anything yet, but you might need to know that, you know, you can point to a FTP server, an FTPS server, an HTTP server, and an HTTPS and an SCP. Okay, so and remember, you're backing up from the vCenter server appliance interface. So you log into your vCenter server and you're backing up there, and you're only backing up the active node. You're not backing up both. Why would you back up active and passive? They're the same. Restore, as you'd expect, just like in a Windows environment, you're restoring from the vCenter server appliance installer. Migration paths, as I mentioned before, if it's embedded 5.5 or 6.0, make sure it's embedded in the future. If it's a SSO 5.5 instance on Windows, or if it's a PSC 6.0 instance on Windows, make sure it's external. And then if it's just the server and you don't hear anything about, it's the external platform services appliance. If it's just the server and you don't hear anything, it's the vCenter server appliance, and then you have to also get an external platform services appliance. Now, if you're looking at troubleshooting within the ESXi client, you could see the information in the VPXA, maybe it's the vCenter public X agent log, I don't know. That shows you some of the information between the communication between the ESXi client. And then making sure that PSC and vCenter server work. Make sure assets at port 744444444 is turned on, and then the clocks with the NTP server is correct. That's all we've got for today. I hope that helped. That's definitely going to help you with several questions in the DCV. Stay tuned for another episode, and be sure to, if you liked it, like it, subscribe, and comment. It'll really help me out. Thanks, guys.